Hello. Hi, everyone. I'm so happy you're all here. Thanks for being here. As many of you know, this is the 6th annual Agave Festival. This is our 3rd day, and we have a lot of great programs coming up. This is the first of 4 great talks and readings today here at the USO. My name is Caitlin Murray. I'm the Director of Archives and Programs for Judd Foundation. This program today is in partnership with the Agave Festival and Judd Foundation, and we've really been looking forward to it for a long time. And I think one of the things that's really struck me, and I think a lot of us, about the conversations that were had yesterday involving archaeology, bats, plants, sotol, was the kind of the both the ecological and the human element of these conversations. And Miles Miller, who's an incredible archaeologist yesterday, was talking about the kind of power of the communal, of the feast, of coming together, of having discussion. That was a big part of Dr. Olivas Garcia's talk yesterday as well, of the importance of having binational conversations, having conversations with your neighbors, having conversations in multiple languages. And I think that this conversation today is a really crucial and important part of what we're thinking about, and about continuing this conversation, bringing it into the social and the political and the historical. So I'm really excited to introduce John Lujan, one of my amazing colleagues at Judd Foundation. And thanks for being here, y'all.
Thank you guys for being here. I just want to see everyone's face. I want to take my first opportunity at realizing why we're here, realizing, our feet are all on the concrete of workers who built this concrete, the roads, the beds you're sleeping on, the housekeeping, the food you're eating. Everything's coming from people who are working, putting everything together. And we're going to talk about Ricardo Flores Magón, who is, who to me, he gave me words to feelings that I have that I couldn't describe. And he gave me more light than I can really understand, and I want everybody to realize like their own light, and what you're doing for the suffering of the world, of the people. We lose track, and the more comfortable we get, the dimmer our lights get, and I just really want to focus on that today. Right now I'm going to introduce Pepe, Rojo, and Grant Leuning. They are PhD candidates in the communication department at UC San Diego. And I guess, before I hand it over to them, I just really want to focus on the importance of why everyone's here, actually. Who delivered your gas to get here? Who made your food so that you can eat when you're over here? These are all the things that are aligning with what's happening around us, because who's making your sotol, and who's getting those plants, who's realizing how much agave we have, and who is it affecting? Anyway, would you like to say a couple of words, Grant?
Hello, we are the thank you for coming. We are the 2 current representatives of the Comité Magonista Tierra y Libertad from the borderland, the edgeland of San Diego, Tijuana. We call it Central California because it includes Baja. Pepe, do you want to introduce us at all? Do you want to add anything?
Yes, we've been working with Flores Magón's ideas for like 6 years, creating a series of actions, gestures. Yeah, okay. Actions, gestures, interventions, traveling around and trying to get people to talk about what Tierra y Libertad means We're going to talk about the translation of this in a while. What does it mean for us living here? And also, I think it's also important to say, we drove all the way from San Diego to over here in 2.5 days. So being here is also part of a traveling vector and watching things around for 1,000 miles that as soon as we got here, understood that things that are happening over there and are happening over here are kind of like deeply related and interconnected, and that conversation should be going on about these kinds of things. So we're very grateful to be here, and very happy that that we were planning on doing this on Zoom, and this is so much better.
Bodies in space, y'all.
Bodies in space.
So, we've been talking about plenty of things the past couple days. I want to really get my vocabulary right because, we live in a different zone, each of us, and we understand things differently. So I just want to keep on talking about the workers. I want to keep on just shining a light on all the suffering going on. Ricardo Flores Magón was great for that. He was great at helping people understand their own suffering and understand the ideas that we're giving to us are a lot of times made for us to suffer. And maybe we should say some words of Ricardo Flores Magón, actually.
Well, I mean, let's start with the three. Like, see that flag up there? It says Tierra y Libertad. That's our flag that we have made thousands of copies of. It entered North America through Ricardo Flores Magón, but it didn't start there. It started in 1860 in Russia, part of the peasants, the serfs fighting for land, to get out of the feudal system. And then it goes through Spain, and then it goes to Los Angeles, where Ricardo Flores Magón is in exile. He was one of the earliest Mexican revolutionaries, revolutionary before that really had a momentum. And he's in Los Angeles, and he makes this phrase as part of his newspaper, Regeneración. And that phrase is part of a bigger movement in the world at that time. Every major country has the same problem, which is that of land reform, because they're all coming out of this feudal system slowly and surely, where the people who own the land and the people who work the land are forever separated, and there can be no crossing that. And so somebody needs to break the property regime. So everywhere around the world that this is happening, workers are trying to fight for land reform. And the one place that's impossible is the United States. Because the United States, instead of having land reform, had colonization. So the poor workers, when they ran out of land on the East Coast, well, you move a little bit west, and you move a little bit west. And then when the west is too dangerous, then you pay them to move a little bit west, or you give them free land. And so the problem of land reform never happened. But it was happening in Mexico. So all of these workers who were starting to become aware of their position internationally, they were members of the IWW. Is anybody familiar with the IWW? Industrial Workers of the World. It's still around. It's the one union anybody can join as long as you cannot fire anybody. If you can fire somebody, you can't join. So they organized everybody. They organized farm workers in the countryside in Imperial County. They organized African American dock workers, Italian immigrants, indigenous fighters in Baja, and everybody rallied around those three words that Flores Magón brought to Los Angeles, and then escaped, and then let that flow across the border. And I guess that's where we come in, because those are the words that we saw and immediately attached to us, but in a way that we needed to figure out. And I think that's what they're doing in that picture. This is Tijuana in 1911. This is the first time the flag was raised although not the first time it was used or not the first time it entered Mexico. But that is this incredibly confusing moment where the Magon revolutionaries had a state, had a people's state for about a month and a half, May 7th, 1911 to June 22nd, 1911. And they never figured it out. They were destroyed before they figured out what it was. But that's the question. And I think that's the question you're asking, and the question about the relationship of the workers to what they own and what they do is still the question.
Flores Magón, kind of like a really interesting historic figure in Mexico, completely erased by its acceptance into the Mexican canon of revolutionaries, because everybody in Mexico knows about him and is taught about him, but you never read a single word he said, because he was the most radical revolutionary at that time. He was kind of like, let's abolish private property. Let's take reign. He was a really radical, and he lived half of his adult life in prisons in both sides of the border. He dies in Leavenworth, Kansas, probably beaten up by guards. And his story is a story of migration. He starts out in Oaxaca, watching a communal indigenous existence. He goes to Mexico City, where he starts publishing and having real problems with the dictator at the time, Porfirio Diaz, constantly being incarcerated until they tell him, you print another word and you're dead. Okay, so he leaves Mexico City and goes to Laredo, San Antonio, and then St. Louis, and then goes to San Francisco and Los Angeles, and that's where he takes over Tijuana. So his migration story is a story that has been repeated 100-fold, 1,000-fold in the last 100 years. And getting to know Ricardo Flores Magón, and we have been talking about it, is he's talking about some problems that were what he thought were the most pressing problems 100 years ago, and you read him today and it's like, oh my God, it's still the same. Although everything has changed, he still feels so contemporary, and he still gives you kind of like a vocabulary that we were talking about that is like really important. Okay, so we say, okay, we have this flag, we have this secret history of Tijuana and the San Diego region, and we have a ghost, which is that possibility. So let's circulate the flag around. Let's try to bring back the flag, also to see what the flag does and what does it mean, because Tierra y Libertad, land and freedom, earth and liberation, we'll talk about it. It's people don't know what it means, or if it means anything, or how. It doesn't quite seem relevant, because there has been kind of like a very weird movement. People no longer fight for earth and freedom. They might even get content with a plot of land and a job. The real smart ones think about real estate and investment. Okay, because there has been kind of like this move towards abstraction, and towards an abstraction of how you live, and where you live and where your money is, that has made people kind of like forget their relationship to land as their primary relationship. Okay, and this abstraction, I mean, we drove 1,000 miles and we drove through gridded territory. You have the border wall on your right, everything is fenced up, everything is kind of like turned into pixels, which is property. That's 1,000 miles of fenced territory, on a macro scale with the border wall, and on a micro scale with private property. And it's even land that it's not even used. So things can't get past those force lines. So it's kind of like, I don't know, it's a Minecraft kind of mindset. It's a grid that we travel through. And to surprise, I will go a little bit longer, okay? What we were talking about in Tijuana, Chris Brown was talking about in Austin, people are talking about it here in Marfa, and it's kind of like the same problems. This relationship of Earth, our bodies, and abstraction, I think it's a really important one. Okay.
I want to say, because we totally failed to answer your question, and to respond to your prompt, except in the most abstract way. But in terms of the words that Ricardo Flores Magón said and wrote, and he is one of the most beautiful revolutionary stylists ever, in any language, but even in English, in translation, he's incredibly beautiful. But the thing that I think is important about those words is that they were his for a moment, but that they passed, and they passed through other people, and that they, when we see so many of these repetitions in border cities, in El Paso and Juarez, in San Diego and Tijuana, in Bisbee and Naco, when we see these same processes again and again and again, it's like those words. They don't stop. It isn't one person who said it. It's this chain of repetition that says, no, this wall is doing something. Yeah. This border is doing something. And it does the same thing when it's around a piece of private property.
Definitely.
That is a border too. And that has the same relationship of violence, of brutality, of requiring police, just as the wall requires border guards. It requires people dying. It requires people not being able to cross that line, both materially, like never being able to buy private property, which is most of us on Earth. I don't know how many in this room, but most of us on Earth will never have private property. And most people on Earth cannot cross that borderline.
And the fact that, people want us to respect the private property, when Ricardo Flores Magón puts it beautifully, that, the deeds of the land are written in the blood of enslavement. And, it's something that, is honored and protected private property. But, those things we cannot honor a lot of times because it just attaches us to our trauma.
And to continue violence.
And to continue
violence. Exactly. It binds us to keep this cycle of a very cruel way of relating to land, to the animals, to the plants, to the humans, to each other. That I don't know. It's kind of like it's a really violent world we're living in. I mean, the border is like a really violent place in many ways. And it's so normalized, and people don't even kind of like get astonished about the violence it inflicts on so many people, on so many levels. On I don't know. I was thinking of Tijuana maquila workers making respirators for San Diego citizens. They were building the medicine and the apparatus that would help United States citizens be able to survive while they couldn't afford that. So it's a question of who lives and who doesn't. And how long? So it's a very pressing question, and I think there should be a lot more conversations about what it means to own land, instead of what it means to dwell on a land or to grow with land. If the only discussion we can have is about who owns land, then the dice are already cast, and a lot of the things that are beautiful in this world are already condemned. If that's the only vocabulary we have to kind of like relate ourselves to where we live and who we live with. And one of the beautiful things about Ricardo Flores Magón is that he was trying to articulate this. Jonathan, you highlighted economic freedom as something that was kind of like really liberating for you when reading Magón.
Oh yeah, because no, we live in a society where, where grinding is the thing. People want to grind. And the thing is it's, I learned the words economic liberty through Ricardo Flores Magón. And it's only because I realized, I don't want to be rich. It's not what I want. What I want is economic liberty. And what I want other people to have is economic liberty, and that doesn't have to relate to money. It doesn't have to relate to that wealth. But it's actually, it's a beautiful thing how it's not related to it, Economic liberty doesn't have to mean you're rich. It doesn't have to mean that.
I think for me, one of the things that I always try to emphasize is that when you look at a flag that says Tierra y Libertad, your focus naturally goes to Tierra y Libertad. But the E, the and, the conjunction of tierra, as we translate it earth rather than land, and libertad, which we translate as liberation rather than freedom, is that and is the most important feature of that flag. Because tierra as like productive land, tierra is not just like a plot, it is land that makes. And I'm sure we're all at least tangentially familiar with the idea of owning what makes money, owning the means of production, as they used to say in the good old days. And that owning matters, but it matters because of the libertad. It matters because of the liberation that comes with it. And this economic liberty is the power of a worker to say no to a job that is degrading or painful, to leave a job that is becoming more exploitative, and to freely make the decision to enter into a relationship where maybe somebody takes more than the worker gets, but that they have the choice to do that they choose for other reasons to take that up. And the conjunction between having a place to act from and a home to go to and a tierra to be in control of is about power. And it's the power, the economic power that matters, not the amount of dollars that go in the bank account. Can you buy land? Doesn't matter how much money you have. Do you have the power to buy land? Yeah. Do you have the power to have land and to share land, not to buy land?
Turning land into abstract space. We were talking with Caitlin about the impact that Airbnb and Instagram have had on Marfa. And this is part of the turning abstract of the earth, of the land, of it becoming a kind of like a number or a piece of paper on a register, and that, which I think is one of the things that make it ownable. And that's the problem with abstractions. And that's also the problem with figuring out what Tierra y Libertad means. And one of the things we have kind of like settled on is we work our way through discussing that. What we do is, because we are kind of like learning how to articulate this, is we make flags with people. We go out in the street and talk about this with people while making things, while making the actual flags. So we solve the flag making, or the action we're actually taking. And I think that brings us back to another really important issue here, which is work, which is labor, which is what you put your time into and how you put your time into. And just the fact that it's very difficult to exist in this world without having an employment or a labor contract, that makes it a very difficult world to live in. Because everybody does what they have to live. But the sheer impossibility of thinking about leaving the work system as it is, of abandoning it, of finding ways to go through it, that's also a very important part of freedom that I think we're radically denied. We've gotten to the point where there's no way of living without subscribing to the way work is understood in a place where ownership kind of like frames all the thoughts we have. So thinking about what labor is and what success is, we were talking about this, and what do you want to get? I mean, work, labor is mainly what you do with your life. Is how do you want to spend your hours? Or how do you want to spend? What do you want to do with those hours? And having the freedom to decide on that, on how to spend time, who to spend it with, I think it's also one of the most important aspects of what this is about, or the discussions we're trying to kind of like have and to learn from, because different people from different spaces have different answers to that, and that's also what we're trying to do.
I think to have that different people conversation is very important, because sometimes we or other people like us can be taken as scolds, because the political discourse in America is extremely moralistic. That every political position has to be a referendum on you as a person or your moral quality or your commitment, and frequently about your beliefs. And one of the most incredible and important things that happens every time we go out, when we march around the street with flags, is somebody sees the flag and they say, absent-mindedly, Tierra y Libertad. They just say it the way I compulsively say like every sign as I'm driving down the road, right? It just came out of my mouth. In the same way it came out of Flores Magón's mouth. And that person maybe doesn't believe in Tierra y Libertad, maybe they don't even have a thought about it, but it came out of their mouth in that moment. And that's what making does, is you don't have to subscribe to anything to participate in making a flag. We grab people off the street and we sort of bully them into, no, just this will take 2 seconds. You make one flag. And what will it mean to you to have joined in this collective mass production, regardless of ideology? So to us, what that means is you have to figure out what is your commitment to the place and what is your attempt to become that place. Because the disgusting part of something like Airbnb and Instagram is that they steal, they extract, they consume, they devour a place, and they make it like everywhere else.
They exhaust it.
They exhaust it. They exhaust its specificity. So when we knew we were coming here, we knew that, like, if we want to talk about in terms of guilt, we're going to stay in a hotel, right? We're going to be a part of a festival that's maybe participating in this, maybe not, pushing against it. And so we had to figure out, how do we come here? And the way we came here is Prajedis Guerrero, who was one of Magón's colleagues. He was a beautiful young man, a poet, fiery revolutionary. Unlike the brothers Flores Magón, he wasn't middle-aged, and so when it came time to go on the revolution, he went. And he crossed at El Paso to Juarez, and he went down for the Battle of Janos, and instantly died. Killed on the first day in the first action, but he was the one who brought the flag into Mexico. It was never flown because they did not win the battle, but we didn't know that until we were asked by Caitlin to come, and we said, what is our place here? What is our place in the Chihuahuan desert? And we found that the flag had brought us here to know that. And we went to the small town, Prajedis Guerrero, which is about an hour east of Juarez. Little town, beautiful. We asked around, do you guys know why this town is named this way? Most people didn't know. But there was the high school math teacher who gave us the whole spiel. He knew the whole story, and he gave it to the other guy that we were talking to, and the story started to expand, and people started to talk about it, and we had found our way to have Tierra y Libertad in this town. Now, did that mean that we succeeded, that we are now honorary citizens of Prajedis Guerrero? No. Does that mean that we are appropriately here? No. Maybe we're not. But the question is, how do you make something that adds to and honors and respects and tries to dwell with the place that you go to, rather than consuming it and eating it and
Definitely.
making it like everywhere else?
Yeah, reducing it to reducing the beauty. It can actually be just to another copy, just to another form of oppression. That's what it is.
And kind of like finding ways to exhaust a place and to raise money out of a place so that the people who actually work there can't even live there, which is something that's happening all over the world. Like this takeover of earth, of land through real estate and investment. It's a kind of like disease that makes people unable to live where they work, and to have each time much smaller places in much more secluded and dangerous places, because people have decided that land is an abstraction that is worth a lot of money, and that it's the only way to think through land is through the language of money and not life, which I found totally disturbing. One of the things we flew 2 flags today, and one flag says Tierra y Libertad in a perfectly legible way, and the other one says Tierra y Libertad backwards, as if you were reading backwards. This is kind of like also kind of like an interesting thing, because we work in a border. We work in the border between Tijuana and San Diego, and although we admire Ricardo Flores Magón and his flag a lot, we can also say that it has a design flaw. But that this design flaw shows its border nature, because it's a flag that puts you either on the right or on the wrong side, because it uses letters. Flags usually don't use letters. So it's a flag that just, the moment you see it, it's either you see it on the right side or you see it on the wrong side, which is a very border-like, the border-like nature of the flag. Yes. So we wanted to make the flag so that both had the wrong side and the right side. So because kind of like that's what the border tries to do. The border tries to say you're either the right kind of people to cross it, or you're the wrong people. You can't cross it. It tries to tag you as right or wrong, as legal or illegal, as owner or worker. So trying to confuse what's the right side and what's the wrong side, it's also part of the kind of like crazy things that have gotten out of working with a flag. Oh, yeah. I wanted to explain that, because we do know how to spell, and we're not dyslexic. Yeah.
I mean, it is the choice of what limited political options we have in the world today. And one of those is to attempt to redraw some lines. And ideally, the line is the property line, and to redraw that line. And we start with the word line, and we start with, even though we're both writers, we have a kind of pessimism about the meaning of the words. And the thing that's been so beautiful about the way that we have built up the community to make these flags is that we have collective mass production. That's our work. The flags are a byproduct. It's the performance of making them with other people that is the work, whatever the work is that we do. It's literally a work. And when we make that, then the letters they're not in one place. They're stretched out. Somebody's cutting them, somebody's sewing them, somebody's painting them, somebody's cutting the stencil. They're not in one moment in time. And one of the things that I found really interesting when I saw the flags up on the flagpoles is that if you think about how flags work, they work to mark land, right? They work to mark, not tierra really, but to mark land as national property, as state property, as conquered. Mm-hmm. But the Tierra y Libertad doesn't do that, partly because they failed, partly because they were destroyed. So what it does is it marks time. It marks a moment when this was a possibility. And because it marks a moment, it is the kind of thing that can be picked up and can be moved from place to place. And hopefully those flags are going to move from place to place. But Tana talked about what Marfa can be for the world would be an attempt to re-understand property from here in a way that thinks about what are the other ways that we can organize ourselves, not just because it will change Marfa, or because Marfa needs it, or because there are people who deserve it, or people who've earned it, or people who have been dispossessed, but because you can make a moment that moves, in the same way words move, in the same way a flag moves. You can make a moment that is understandable and spreadable and comprehensible and powerful elsewhere.
Yeah, now, and honestly, I like the idea of, it's in the middle of town. These flags are flying. We're all seeing this and subconsciously absorbing what Tierra y Libertad means. And just hopefully somewhere, the workers of Marfa will see that and, find their value. The workers of Marfa aren't actually here right now. They're working. It's 1 p.m. on a Saturday. The people who need to listen to this right now are making food, and they're cleaning beds, and they're throwing trash, and they're doing all the things that no one has to do here so that you can enjoy yourself. So having those flags up it's very important to me, and I really feel like it's a spark, you know, and it's up to us really how far or how bright we can make that shine, you know. So you guys want to show y'all's video?
Yeah.
Where's that?
No, I think we try to have a conversation.
Yeah.
with
Okay,
people,
great.
Yeah.
Yeah, we gotta have time for people to holler back at us.
Yeah.
Say no.
You know, I apologize. You know, I honestly really, I want to break free from whatever's holding me back right now. You know, first of all, it's I guess the way things are set up. I wish it was a group to where I could just walk through nature with and talk to you next to the plants, and maybe we can even feel our bare feet on the soil. Those are all things that I think help the conversation, and because they're all natural things, and just the way we've learned how to receive information, like sitting in chairs looking at people, is just like we receive information like that enough, So really, I'm trying to break free, trying to understand why I'm being, I feel like I'm put in a little box or something, but I just want to burn rapidly, and I want y'all's minds to burn, and I want you guys to burn inside. But like I said, I notice that the more comfortable people are, the dimmer their light is, that burns for the suffering. And the more you're dealing with the suffering, the more you want to make it apparent that it's there to other people.